ShaggyJustin says, what's it like to be part of something that is now part of the lexicon of our society? I'm referring to seeing people all over YouTube and everyday life adopting language like, I'm gonna bust that myth, or some such. I don't remember that language being used before MythBusters, at least in the southern US. What's it like to know you're actually part of today's cultural language and verbiage at that? It's so funny. I do remember a friend of mine calling me up and saying, you came up last night in conversation. And I said, me personally, or me as a cultural artifact? Because they are two different things. I said at the beginning of this that the reason we're taking questions about MythBusters is because we're about to launch another auction with Prop Store to benefit the Grant Imahara STEAM Foundation. And as part of that auction, we signed some autographs. We brought out a bunch of blueprints that the foundation had. And Carrie Byron came by the cave and texted me afterwards to say just that she had a great time, that was lovely, but also how inspired she is by the stories kids tell her about being inspired by the show. And Carrie has really spent so much of her time post MythBusters working on getting the message out to kids and working with little girls and working with young kids. And your question, what is it like to be part of something that's part of the cultural lexicon? It is profoundly humbling because it's super clear how, from my vantage point and the vantage point of all of my fellow hosts and crew, we were just trying to solve the employment problems of that day. We weren't thinking along those lines. Our joke is we were never thinking of the children, but it's mostly humbling because of how much that wasn't in our heads when we were making it. I'm so grateful for that. We just got to go and spend some time at two different cons, at Dragon Con in Atlanta and Cincinnati Comics Expo in Cincinnati. And I love the stories. I'm sure some of you watching now came to my autograph table and told me stories about why you're an engineer or what got your kid into engineering. Or I love this. Young people telling me they watched it with the parent who's no longer with them. Simon Pegg told me that the Christmas MythBusters marathon was a family tradition in his family. The two primary responses are humility and gratitude. Yeah, I'm humbled by how little it was on my mind that we were doing something that was important. You could debate its importance, to be sure, but I'm using important in a different meaning of just like the depth of what its effect can eventually be. And gratitude over like, wow, holy cow, we got to do this weird thing. The show was a hit before we got to know what it was. We got to build it from the inside, got to figure out its mechanics and operate those levers for almost a decade and a half. Incredible. All of us hosts got to experience a king's ransom of the most impossible circumstances. It really is. I had occasion, did I say this last week, that I had occasion to go over our whole canon of stories? I don't think I said this on the live stream last time. Recently, I got asked to notate which MythBusters stories dealt with chemistry. And so I went through our whole list episode. And man, just reading the whole list is a little overwhelming. It's like, wow, I can't believe what we got to do. Yeah, that's it. That we got to do that. AlChemicalLife, or is it AI Chemical Life? Second question, says, did your life change after starting MythBusters? What did it feel like going from a non-TV star to a TV star? Yeah, I was wondering about that when we first started shooting. I was very curious about how that would be. And I had this idea of how it would be that I think might be close to whatever your idea might be of it, which is I thought it was going to be like Jersey Shore. Like I thought, let me elaborate. I thought that it would be like overnight, right? Like all of a sudden we're on television, people are waving at us and saying hi and all sorts of stuff is happening. That did not happen. I specifically remember the first time I ever got recognized was in an electronics store up in San Rafael, the electronics store up in San Rafael, California. And a guy walked in and went, "Oh, you're a guy on that show I saw last night on Discovery Channel." And I was like, yeah. And he goes, "This is just where I would have expected to find you." I was like, me too. But then the next person didn't recognize me for months. So there's two aspects of the advent of MythBusters that I'm really grateful for. One is that it happened later in life. I was in my late 30s. Jamie was in his late 90s when we started making the show. I'm kidding. He's only about 10 years older than me. And I had seen some stuff. I'd been through some stuff. I'd been divorced. Like, life had dished out a fair amount of stuff to me by the time I was in my late 30s. And, right, why am I saying that? Oh, because I thought about what if all of this had happened when I was 18 or 19 years old. And I thought, man, thank God that didn't happen. Because when I was 18 or 19 years old, I really wanted to be famous. I wanted to be famous. I thought I was going to be clever and really smart guy. And I had this sense of entitlement that this would, that I would be able to do something and get famous for it. Like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd grown up with my dad had a very public career at times. I wanted to emulate him, but also he was regarded by his peers as very, very smart. And so of course I had that sense of entitlement to me. And now when I think, oh my God, if I had gotten a television show when I was 18 or 19, okay, so this begs the question, what are the bad things that can happen? In my opinion, the worst thing that can happen to someone who gets famous is that they believe that they deserve it. Because it can show up and it can disappear. It's ephemeral. It's defined by its ephemerality. And if you think you deserve it, man, it is just like the idea that you and your point of view intersect with culture enough that you get notoriety for your point of view. It's a lottery. It's a lottery. The world is packed with the greatest geniuses you'll never hear about simply because the stuff they're being geniuses about is not culturally relevant or interesting or the word hasn't gotten out. You're also like, okay, so you asked how life changed. First of all, the recognition from the public was very slow. It took 2 or 3 years for it to start to be at all ubiquitous. That slowness was a really nice ramp. It felt stable, and it was something you could get used to each level, as opposed to being like the kids from Jersey Shore, where one night they're a bunch of Goombas from the Jersey Shore, and the next day they're world famous, being paid millions of dollars. Of course they all went crazy. If you give a 19-year-old millions of dollars in international fame, you're going to end up with Caligula like 90% of the time. I really, really believe that. Specifically because the moment you have a hit show, your network just wants to do everything for you. They don't want to ever tell you no. So you rarely ever hear that. You'll ask for something and your producer will tell you no, but no one ever tells you no to your face. And when no one's telling you no to your face for a long period of time, you start to wonder if no exists anymore, and maybe there are no rules. The level of fame that we got to gave me a window into the mechanisms by which it can turn people into insane monsters. Yeah, you hear this all the time about people, like there's no one around them that can tell them no. Man, when there's no one around you that can tell you no, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble, and you're also going to traumatize people around you. Like that's a guarantee. So look, I will tell you the most difficult moment of being famous for me happened when MythBusters was at its peak around 2009, and I was traveling cross country with one of my sons, and I lost him in an airport. So he was 11. He didn't have a phone. At 11, they didn't get phones. And I was trying to find him at the same moment when super famous me, everyone in the airport in my vicinity knew who I was and was trying to make eye contact with me. That's the most difficult moment of my entire fame arc on the show. That's when I felt the most claustrophobic, because I'm trying to find a child and I don't want to have an interaction and I don't want to be rude, but holy cow, can people stop? And I just started going, lost child, lost child. And then I found him seconds later. But that moment, not easy to deal with. I can't, again, my level of famous was very, very moderate. I have no idea what it's like to be the way movie stars have to navigate the world, have to navigate every person that they meet. And oh my God, being a woman and having that happen with the way people put their expectations, I can't even conceive. So I feel like in every way that we got to experience, we got to, I'd say, peel behind the curtain of fame. It was pretty gentle to Jamie and I and Carrie and Tori and Grant. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.